Just about everyone has a name.
Julia K. DeMario.
My full name is Adrienne Grace Hoopingarner.
Elizabeth Bacom Upholt.
My name is Megan Marie Rogie.
The thing is, for most of my life, I thought names contributed little to a person's sense of self. I always figured the closest thing to a name tradition for most American parents was a mailed birth announcement. But more on me later. In our American society and in our personal lives, do our names matter? Meet the Pats. They've been best friends since they were 11.
But see, yeah, so 10 years, wow.
The one on the left, that's Patrick Driscoll. Almost everyone refers to him as Driscoll.
The only people that call me Patrick are like girls that don't really know me and my mom. Everybody else really calls me Driscoll.
And the one on the right is Patrick Rickett. He's almost exclusively referred to as Rickett.
It's been Rickett for a long time. Like, I don't even introduce myself as Pat when I meet people. I usually introduce myself as Rickett, and they usually say Ricky, and I say, yeah, it's Ricky. And we go from there.
My introducing line is like, my name is Patrick, but you're never going to hear me called that. You're only going to hear me called Driscoll.
This inseparable duo with the same name are no strangers to confusion upon meeting new people.
We came to the same school, ended up joining the same fraternity. When they referred to us as the Evanston Pats when they were rushing us.
Yeah.
I remember that. Of course it contributes to our identity. I feel like by going by my last name, I don't know, it's more...
It's less formal.
Yeah.
It's
like
formal.
when there's... when every
more, I don't know, outgoing as a person going by my last name and just... I don't know.
Like, it's not people calling me Mr. Driscoll, like they're just calling me Driscoll. So when everybody calls me that, I feel like it's like a sign of affection.
It's more like
I guess.
It feels like a nickname.
Yeah.
And that just makes you feel already more connected to somebody.
But these two, despite being best friends, are very different people.
We're not that similar other than our names are Pat. At least I like to think that. I'm funnier than him, that's for sure. I'm witty.
Yeah, he's wittier than me.
Yeah.
I'll give you that. But I'm more adventurous.
Neither men identify with the name Patrick, and both said that even if they someday move away from each other, they'll still introduce themselves by their last names. For very different reasons, Sundiata Chajua also didn't identify with the name given to him by his parents. He actually personally selected and legally changed his name.
I'd say one large reason in terms of the search for identity in terms of African American history and culture, that clearly the names that African Americans have, the surnames, are names that were given to them by European slave masters, right? So in my attempt to find a name, I'd say that it was motivated by two factors. One was a series of incidents that happened in 7th grade. And then the other was, and I'd refer to that as a kind of negation, right? And then a positive search for affirmation much later in life. In 7th grade, I was one of 4 black students. We were actually all males, and we were in this elite section. And the teacher, who I would argue, a guy by the name of Ned Freeman, he was advanced in terms of pedagogical techniques. He did a lot of interesting things, but he was a stark, cold-blooded racist. And so one of the things that Ned did, his first assignment actually, was a requirement that you do a genealogy of your family history, family tree. And his requirements were 2 things. One, that you had to be able to trace your family's lineage back on both sides before the Civil War. And then the second was simply that you give a kind of etymology of the name and talk about this place of origin. And so this friend of mine, Ronnie Fluker, he was the first black kid to go. So Fluker, it's a German derivation, da-da-da-da. And Ned Freeman immediately stops him and he says, Ronnie, are you German? And Ronnie says, no. And he says, right, you're a Negro. Do you know how you got that name? Because you were a slave. You were a slave to someone who was, your ancestors were slaves to someone who was German. And we're like, wow, what the hell, right? And so we in general kind of knew that, but not in that kind of sharp and crystallized way. The other thing is that I don't know that I had ever heard the word Negro used before. And so I kind of knew at that moment, right, that I don't like this name.
Dr. Chajua's full name is now Sundiata Keita Chajua.
Sundiata Keita is Mandinka, so it's from West Africa. And Chajua is Kiswahili, and it's from East Africa. So, you know, again, in the vision, it was a Pan-African name, and you're uniting parts of the continent.
Of course, most people aren't like Dr. Chajua. Most people, like Dana Virginia Parker, live their lives with the name they are given at birth and experience different feelings about their name as they go through different stages of their lives.
It's really funny because when I was little, I hated my name, and I thought it was so boring and I didn't have a nickname. I really wanted a nickname, but my name, there wasn't Dane kind of, but it wasn't anything shorter, and I hated that. But now, like, I love the fact that it's simple and short, and everyone who reads it knows how to say it, and I really value that. As I get older, I'm just in general learning to appreciate simplicity, like in life. So the fact that my name is simple, I really appreciate that, and I see the beauty in simplicity, and so I see beauty in my name now versus simple being boring. When I was younger, that's what I would think of.
Naomi Elise Hines also grew to appreciate her name.
I'm not exactly sure how my parents came up with the name Naomi. I know they weren't planning on naming me that because when I was born, they had named me Olivia, and that was the name they picked out in a baby book. But 2 days after I was born, I was still in the hospital, and they thought Naomi instead of Olivia, and they changed it on the birth certificate. I stopped disliking my name when I was in high school because I think I finally became more self-confident. I think that Naomi now is a pretty unique name and nobody else has it. I used to want to blend in and I wanted to be Olivia because that's a standard white girl name. But now Naomi makes me feel different and I really like that.
My own story isn't as dramatic as some of the others. It's never been a love or a hate relationship. I'm Sarah Ann Shaw, and names fascinate me. I'm in a time of my life where I'm truly trying to figure out who I am, and I don't know who that person is yet. It's definitely something I struggle with a lot, and I think having a strong sense of self is really important. I've always thought my own name, Sarah Ann Shaw, was incredibly generic, and while I never disliked it, I also never really identified with it. It lacks a strong ethnic obviousness, and my actual ethnicity is a mixture of so many things that I don't have a strong connection to that either. It really wasn't until college that I began identifying myself as something other than just Sarah, which is the name my parents gave me for no particular reason. But in the past few years, I started signing emails and notes with my initials, SAS, and I would read it as SAS, but everyone else would read it as Sass. So now people close to me, my friends and my family, they call me Sass, and even though I'm not totally sure who that person is, I feel like myself when I hear it. I'm a work in progress, so I thought maybe I could learn about myself through learning about other people. And after all that, I think the late poet W.H. Auden still says it best. Proper names are poetry in the raw. Like all poetry, they are untranslatable.